Chapter 11, The Economic Environment for Business. Chapter Learning Objectives. Upon completion of this chapter, you will be able to explain the main objectives of macroeconomic policy, explain the potential conflict between the main objectives of macroeconomic policy and its impact on policy targets, explain the impact of general macroeconomic policy on planning and decision making in the business sector, define monetary policy and explain the main tools used, discuss the general role of monetary policy in the achievement of macroeconomic policy targets, discuss use of interest rates in the achievement of macroeconomic policy targets, define exchange rate policy and discuss its role in the achievement of macroeconomic policy targets, explain the impact of specific economic policies on planning and decision making in the business sector, define fiscal policy and explain the main tools used, discuss the role of fiscal policy in the achievement of macroeconomic policy targets, explain the need for competition policy and its interaction with business planning and decision making, explain the need for government assistance for business and its interaction with business planning and decision making, explain the need for green policies and their interaction with business planning and decision making, explain the need for corporate governance regulation and its interaction with business planning and decision making, economic environment, macroeconomic policy, objectives, monetary policy, fiscal policy, government intervention and regulation. Section 1, Macroeconomic Policy. The objectives of macroeconomic policy. Macroeconomic policy is the management of the economy by government in such a way as to influence the performance and behavior of the economy as a whole. The principal objectives of macroeconomic policy will be to achieve the following: full employment of resources, price stability, low inflation, economic growth, balance of payments, equilibrium, and appropriate distribution of income and wealth. The objectives of macroeconomic policy. The full employment of resources applies in particular to the labor force. The aim is both full and stable employment. Price stability means little or no inflation, putting upward pressure on prices. Economic growth is measured by changes in national income from one year to the next and is important for improving living standards. The balance of payments relates to the ratio of imports to exports. A payment surplus would mean the value of exports exceeds that of imports. A payment deficit would occur where imports exceed exports. What is considered an appropriate distribution of income and wealth will depend upon the prevailing political view at that time. Potential for conflict. The pursuit of macroeconomic objectives may involve trade-offs where one objective has to be sacrificed for the sake of another, for example, full employment versus price stability, economic growth versus balance of payments. Potential for conflict. Both economic theory and the experience of managing the economy suggest that the simultaneous achievement of all macroeconomic objectives may be extremely difficult. Two examples of possible conflict may be cited here. There may be conflict between full employment and price stability. It is suggested that inflation and employment are inversely related. The achievement of full employment may therefore lead to excessive inflation through an excess level of aggregate demand in the economy. Rapid economic growth may, in the short term at least, have damaging consequences for the balance of payments, since rapidly rising incomes may lead to a rising level of imports. Government reputation and business confidence will both be damaged if the government is seen to be pursuing policy targets that are widely regarded as incompatible. Policy objectives may conflict, and hence governments have to consider trade-offs between objectives. The identification of targets for policy should reflect this. Making an impact: how macroeconomic policy affects the business sector. In order for macroeconomic policy to work, its instruments must have an impact on economic activity. This means that it must affect the business sector. It does so in two broad forms. Macroeconomic policy maintains stable aggregate demand, helps business plan investment, employment, output, influence costs. Methods include exchange rates, fiscal policy, taxation, monetary policy, interest rates. Aggregate demand. Aggregate demand AD is the total demand for goods and services in the economy. Note: national income is aggregate demand that has been satisfied by the provision of goods and services, etc. The broad thrust of macroeconomic policy is to influence the level of AD in the economy. This is because the level of AD is central to the determination of the level of unemployment and the rate of inflation. If AD is too low, unemployment might result. If AD is too high, inflation induced by excess demand might result. Changes in AD will affect all businesses to varying degrees. Thus, effective business planning requires that businesses can predict the likely thrust of macroeconomic policy in the short to medium term, predict the consequences for sales growth of the overall stance of macroeconomic policy and any likely changes in it. The more stable government policy is, the easier it is for businesses to plan, especially in terms of investment, employment, and future output capacity. Business cost. Macroeconomic policy may influence the cost of the business sector. Not only will the demand for goods and services be affected by macroeconomic policy, it also has important implications for the cost and revenues of businesses. Three important areas may be identified. Exchange rates. Macroeconomic policy may involve changes in exchange rates. This may have the effect of raising the domestic prices of imported goods. Most businesses use some imported goods in the production process, hence this leads to a rise in the production cost. Taxation. Fiscal policy involves the use of taxation. Changes in tax rates or the structure of taxation will affect businesses. For example, a change in the employer's national insurance contribution (NIC) will have a direct effect on labor costs for all businesses. Changes in indirect taxes, for example, a rise in sales tax or excise duties, will either have to be absorbed or the business will have to attempt to pass on the tax to its customers. Interest rates. Monetary policy involves changes in interest rate. These changes will directly affect firms in two ways. Cost of servicing debts will change, especially for highly geared firms. The viability of investment will be affected since all models of investment appraisal include the rate of interest as one, if not the main variable. Section 2. Monetary policy. Monetary policy is concerned with influencing the overall monetary conditions in the economy, in particular, the volume of money in circulation, the money supply, the price of money, interest rates. Monetary policy. It is clear that money is crucial to the way in which a modern economy functions. Money is any financial asset that has liquidity and fulfills the task of a medium of exchange. Monetary policy is concerned with influencing the overall monetary conditions in the economy. Two particular problems with the use of monetary policy are the choice of targets, the effect of interest rate changes. The choice of targets. A fundamental problem of monetary policy concerns the choice of variables to operate on. The ultimate objective of monetary policy is to influence some important variables in the economy: the level of demand, the rate of inflation, the exchange rate for the currency, etc. However, monetary policy has to do this by targeting some immediate variable which it is believed influences in some predictable way the ultimate object of the policy. The broad choice here is between targeting the stock of money or the rate of interest, the volume of money in circulation, the stock of money in the economy. The money supply is believed to have important effects on the volume of expenditure in the economy. This in turn may influence the level of output in the economy or the level of prices. The price of money. The price of the money is the rate of interest. If government wishes to influence the amount of money held in the economy or the demand for credit, they may attempt to influence the level of interest rates. The monetary authorities may be able to control either the supply of money in the economy or the level of interest rates, but cannot do both simultaneously. In practice, attempts by governments to control the economy by controlling the money supply have failed and have been abandoned. However, growth in the money supply is monitored because excessive growth could be destabilizing. The effect of interest rate. The problem for the monetary authority is that controlling the level of interest rates is rather easier than controlling the overall stock of money, but the effects of doing so are less certain. If government choose to target interest rates as the principal means of conducting monetary policy, this may have a series of undesirable effects. These principally relate to the indiscriminate nature of interest rate changes and to the external consequences of monetary policy. When interest rates are changed, it is expected that the general level of demand in the economy will be affected. Thus, a rise in interest rate will discourage expenditure by raising the cost of credit. However, the effects will vary. Investments may be affected more than consumption. The rate of interest is the main cost of investment by businesses, whether it is financed by internal funds or by debt. However, most consumption by individuals is not financed by credit and hence is less affected by interest rate changes. Since the level of investment in the economy is an important determinant of economic growth and international competitiveness, there may be serious long-term implications arising from high interest rates. Even where consumption is affected by rising interest rate, the effects are uneven. The demand for consumer durable goods and houses is most affected, hence, since these are normally credit-based purchases. Hence, active interest policy may induce instability in some sectors of business. The second problem arises from the openness of modern economies and their economic interdependence. There is now a very high degree of capital mobility between economies. Large sum of short-term capital move from one financial center to another in pursuit of higher interest rates. Changes in domestic interest rate relative to those in other financial centers will produce large inflows and outflows of short-term capital. Inflows of capital represent a demand for the domestic currency and hence push up the exchange rate. Outflows represent sales of the domestic currency and hence depress the exchange rate. This may bring about unacceptable movements in the exchange rate. Monetary policy in the UK. It is useful to look at the current monetary policy in the UK. Similar policies are pursued in the US and the Eurozone countries. In the UK, the central bank has been given responsibility by the government for controlling short-term interest rates. Short-term interest rates are controlled with a view to influencing the rate of inflation in the economy over the long term. In broad terms, an increase in interest rate is likely to reduce demand in the economy and so lower inflationary pressures, whereas a reduction in interest rate should give a boost to spending in the economy but could result in more inflation. The aim of economic policy is to find a suitable balance between economic growth and the risks from inflation. Central governments can control short-term interest rate through their activities in the money market. This is because the commercial banks need to borrow regularly from the central bank. The central bank lends to the commercial bank at a rate of its own choosing, a rate known in the UK as the repo rate. This borrowing rate for banks affects the interest rates that the banks set for their own customers. Action by a central bank to raise or lower interest rates normally results in an immediate increase or reduction in bank base rates. In November 17, after a decade of UK interest rates being at their lowest ever level, the Bank of England raised rates partially to combat rising inflation at the time. The rate was raised again in 2018 as the initial rise had not brought inflation to an acceptable level. Interest rate smoothing. Interest rate smoothing is the policy of some central banks to move official interest rates in a sequence of relatively small steps in the same direction rather than waiting until making a single larger change. This is useful for the following reasons: economic, for example, to avoid instability and the need for reversal in the policy, and political, for example, higher rates are broken to the electorate gently. Impact of monetary policy on business decision making. Factors affected: availability of finance achieved by controlling supply, credit restrictions, availability of finance, credit restrictions, small businesses struggle to raise fund achieved by increasing interest rate, cost of factors affected, cost of finance, reduced supply pushes up the cost of funds, discourages expansion, shareholders require higher returns, if not met share price falls, level of consumer demand, too difficult to raise funds to spend, saving becomes more attractive, spending less attractive, exchange rates, high interest rates attracts foreign investment, increase in exchange rates, exports dearer, imports cheaper. All the above factors will also therefore influence inflation, which has a significant impact on business cash flows and profits. Inflation may be demand pull inflation, excess demand, cost push inflation, high production cost. Both can have a negative impact on cash flows and profits. Impact of monetary policy. Changes in monetary policy will influence the following factors: the availability of finance. Credit restrictions achieved via the banking system or by direct legislation will reduce the availability of loans. This can make it difficult for small or medium-sized new businesses to raise finance. The threat of such restrictions in the future will influence financial decisions by companies, making them more likely to seek long-term stable finance for projects. The cost of finance. Any restriction on the stock of money or restrictions on credit will raise the cost of borrowing, making fewer investment projects worthwhile and discouraging expansion by companies. Also, any increase in the level of general interest rate will increase shareholders' required rate of return. So, unless companies can increase their return, share prices will fall as interest rates rise. Thus, in time of tight money and high interest rate, organizations are less likely to borrow money and will probably contract rather than expand operations. The level of consumer demand, periods of credit control and high interest rate reduce consumer demand. Individuals find it more difficult and more expensive to borrow to fund consumption, while saving becomes more attractive. The lowering of demand for goods and services is another reason for organizations to have to contract operations. The level of exchange rate. Monetary policy which increases the level of domestic interest rates is likely to raise exchange rate as capital is attracted into the country. Very many organizations now deal with both suppliers and customers abroad and thus cannot ignore the effect of foreign exchange rate movements. Financial managers must consider methods of hedging exchange rate risk and the effect of changes in exchange rates on their position as importers and exporters. The level of inflation. Monetary policy is often used to control inflation. Rising prices levels and uncertainty as to future rates of inflation make financial decisions more difficult and more important. As prices of different commodities change at different rates, the timing of purchase, sale, borrowing, and repayment of debt becomes critical to the success of organizations and their projects. This is discussed further below. Impact of inflation on business cash flows and profits. The real effects on the level of profits and the cash flow position of a business of a sustained rate of inflation depend on the form that inflation is taking and the nature of the markets in which the company is operating. One way of analyzing inflation is to distinguish between demand pull inflation and cost push inflation. Demand pull inflation might occur when excess aggregate monetary demand in the economy and hence demand for particular goods and services enables companies to raise prices and expand profit margins. Cost push inflation will occur when there are increases in production costs independent of the state of demand, for example, rising raw material costs or rising labor costs. The initial effect is to reduce profit margins, and the extent to which these can be restored depends on the ability of companies to pass on cost increase as price increase for customers. One would expect that the effect of cost push inflation on company profits and cash flow would always be negative, but that with demand pull inflation, profits and cash flow might be increased, at least in nominal terms and in the short run. In practice, however, even demand pull inflation may have negative effects on profits and cash flows. Demand pull inflation may in any case work against costs. This is especially true if companies use pricing strategies in which prices are determined by cost plus some markup. Excess demand for goods leads companies to expand output. This leads to excess demand for factors of production, especially labor, so cost, for example, wages rise. Companies pass on the increased cost as higher prices. In most cases, inflation will reduce profits and cash flow, especially in the long run. Section 3 Fiscal Policy. Fiscal policy is the manipulation of the government budget in order to influence the level of aggregate demand and therefore the level of activity in the economy. It covers government spending, taxation, government borrowing, which are linked as follows. Public expenditure is equal to taxes raised plus government borrowing. Balancing the government budget expenditure is greater than tax income, additional spending financed through borrowing. Deficit. Tax income is greater than expenditure, spare funds used to pay off public debt. Balancing the budget, all governments engage in public expenditure, although levels vary somewhat from country to country. This expenditure must be financed either by taxation or by borrowing. Thus, the existence of public expenditure itself raises issue of policy, notably how to tax and whom to tax. But in addition, the process of expenditure and taxation permits the use of fiscal policy in a wider sense. The government budget can be manipulated to influence the level of aggregate demand in the economy and hence the level of economic activity. The government budget, including central and local government, is a statement of public expenditure and income over a period of 1 year. Expenditure can be financed either by taxation or by borrowing. The relationship of expenditure to taxation indicates the state of the budget. 3 budget positions can be identified. A balanced budget, total expenditure is matched by total taxation income. Deficit budget, total expenditure exceeds total taxation income and the deficit must be financed by borrowing. In the UK, the budget deficit was known as the Public Sector Borrowing Requirement (PSBR) but has been renamed to PSNCR, Public Sector Net Cash Requirement. A surplus budget, total expenditure is less than the total taxable income and the surplus can be used to pay back public debt incurred as a result of previous deficits. Taxation, the obvious means by which public expenditure can be financed is by taxation. The government receives some income from direct charges in the public sector, for example, health prescription charges, and from trading profits of some public sector undertaking, but the bulk of its income comes from taxation. Taxes are divided into broad groups. Direct taxes are taxes levied directly on income receivers, whether they are individuals or organizations. These include income tax, NICs, corporation tax, and inheritance tax. Indirect taxes are levied on one set of individuals or organizations but may be partly or wholly assessed onto others and are largely related to consumption rather than income. These include VAT and excise duty, but by their very nature, indirect taxes tends to be regressive, which means they have a relatively greater impact on individuals with lower incomes. Impacts of excessive taxation. Taxation can raise very large flows of income for the government. However, excessive taxation may have undesirable economic consequences. Those most frequently cited are as follows. Personal disincentives to work and effort. This may be related mainly to the form of taxation. For example, progressive income tax, earn more, pay more, rather than the overall level of taxation. Discouragement to business, especially the disincentive to invest and engage in research and development (R&D), which results from high business taxation. This incentive to foreign investment. Multinational firms may be dissuaded from investing in economies with high tax regimes. A reduction in tax revenue may occur if taxpayers are dissuaded from undertaking extra income generating work and are encouraged to seek tax avoidance schemes. If the tax rate exceeds a certain level, the total tax revenue falls. It should be noted that these disincentive effects, while apparently clear in principle, are difficult to identify in the real world and hence their impact is uncertain. Government borrowing. Broadly, the government can undertake two types of borrowing. It can borrow directly or indirectly from the public by issuing relatively illiquid debt. These include national savings certificates, premium bonds, and long-term government bonds. This is referred to as funding the debt. It can borrow from the banking system by issuing relatively liquid debt such as treasury bills. This is referred to as unfunded debt. Long-term government bonds, gilts, are issued for long-term financing requirements, whereas treasury bills are issued to fund short-term cash flow requirements. Problems of fiscal policy. Two difficulties associated with fiscal policy have dominated debates about macroeconomic management in recent years. The problem of crowding out, the incentive effects of taxation. Both have had a major impact on the way in which fiscal policy has been concluded, especially in the US and the UK. Crowding out. It is suggested that fiscal policy can lead to financial crowding out, whereby government borrowing leads to a fall in private investment. This occurs because increased borrowing leads to a higher interest rates by creating greater demand for money and loanable funds and hence a higher price. The private sector, which is sensitive to interest rate, will then reduce investment due to a lower rate of return. This is the investment that is crowded out. The weakening of fixed investment and other interest-sensitive expenditure counteracts the economy, boosting benefits of government spending. More importantly, a fall in fixed investment by business can hurt long-term economic growth. Doubts exist over the likely size of any crowding out effect of government borrowing on other borrowers, but a very large PSNCR may well lead to a fall in private investment. However, when the economy is depressed and there is not much new private sector investment, government spending programs could help to give a boost to the economy. Incentives. It is likely that all taxes have same effect. Indeed, the structure of taxes is designed to influence particular economic activities. In particular, taxes on spending are used to alter the pattern of consumption. Here are two examples. High excise duties on alcohol and tobacco products reflect social and health policy priorities. Policies to use excise duties to raise the real price of petrol over time are designed to discourage the use of private cars because of the environmental effects. Thus, taxes as instruments of fiscal policy can fulfill a variety of useful functions. However, there has been a growing concern among some economists that taxes have undesirable side effects on the economy, notably on incentives. As we have seen, it is argued that high taxes, especially when they are steeply progressive, act as disincentive to work. Moreover, Some taxes have more specific effects. For example, employer national insurance (NI) payments raise the cost of labor and probably reduce employment. Section 4, Government intervention and regulation. As well as the general measure to impact business operations discussed above, government can also take more specific measures to regulate business. These measures will cover aspects such as competition policy, provision of government assistance, green policies, corporate governance guidelines. Competition policy. It is not the government's place to set prices for goods and services provided by businesses in the private sector. In a competitive marketplace, prices will be set within the industry according to demand and supply. All producers have to accept the prevailing market price unless they are able to add distinguishing feature to their products, for example, branding, superior technology that enable them to charge higher prices. However, some markets are characterized by various degrees of market power, in particular monopolies, whereby producers become price makers rather than price takers. A monopoly is where a firm has a sufficient share of the market to enable it to restrict output and raise prices. The absence of competition results in disadvantages to the economy as a whole. Economic inefficiency: output is produced at a higher cost than necessary. For example, there may be no incentive to reduce cost by improving the technology used. Monopolies may be able to engage in price discrimination, charging different prices to different customers for the same goods or services, for example, peak and off-peak pricing. This may act against the interest of customers. Disincentives to innovate. The absence of competition may reduce the incentive to develop new products or new production processes. Pricing practices. Monopolies may adopt pricing practices to make it uneconomic for new firms to enter the industry, thus reducing competition in the long run. These potential problems of companies with monopoly power must be considered in the light of some possible advantages that may be associated with such firms. Large firms may secure economies of scale. It is possible that there are significant economies of scale reducing production cost, but that these require large firms and hence the number of firms in industry is restricted. In this case, the benefits of economies of scale may offset the inefficiencies involved. The special case of natural monopolies. This is the case where the economies of scale in the provision of some basic infrastructure are so great that only one producer is feasible. This may be the case of the public utilities in energy and sector. Research and development. It may be that monopoly profits are both the reward and the sources of finance when they enable technological and organizational innovation. Thus, some disadvantages have to be accepted in order to ensure a dynamic and innovative business sector. Economic theory concludes that all other things being equal, economic welfare is maximized when markets are competitive. Government responses. Public provision, nationalize activity, eliminate unfairness, economies of scale but often inefficient. Regulation, self-regulation, legal regulation, control of monopolies, legislation against restrictive practice, for example, make price fixing illegal. Reviews of all potential monopolies and mergers may be refused. Go ahead. Fair competition, public provision and regulation. The response to the problems associated with monopoly power can take a variety of forms. The first of these is public provision. This is where an economic activity is nationalized. The advantages of these are as follows. Unfair pricing practices and or excessive prices can be eliminated. Cost advantages of economies of scale can be reaped. Traditionally, public utilities have presented the most convincing case for nationalization because they are natural monopolies. However, nationalized industries may have disadvantages, notably greater potential for cost inefficiencies. The alternative responses to the dangers of monopoly is regulation. Self-regulation is common in many professions where the profession itself establishes codes of conduct and rules of behavior. For example, the Law Society, the British Medical Association. The alternative is some form of public or legal regulation. An example in the UK is the establishment of regulatory bodies for the private utilities such as Oftel and Ofgas. These were established in recognition of the monopoly power of the privatized utilities and have a degree of power over both prices and services in these industries. Another UK regulatory body is the Financial Services Authority (FSA) that has responsibility for regulating the financial services, banking and insurance market. The FSA does not have to control monopolies, but it is concerned with ensuring fair competition and protecting the public against unfair treatment by financial organizations. Fair competition, the control of monopoly. Fair competition policy has typically centered upon two broad issues: monopolies and mergers, restrictive practices. The concern for monopolies is with firms which have a degree of monopoly power defined as having more than 25% of the market, or with mergers which may produce a new company with more than 25% of market share. The underlying assumption is that monopolies are likely to be inefficient and may act against the interests of the customers. The concern over restrictive practices is with trading practices of firms that may be deemed to be uncompetitive and act against the interest of consumers. Legislation topic typically prohibits anti-competitive agreements such as price fixing cartels and b abuse of a dominant position in a market. Government assistance, the political and social objectives of a government as well as its economic objectives could be pursued through official and aid interventions such as grants and subsidies. The government provides support to businesses both financially in the form of grants and through access to networks of expert advice and information. For example, to boost enterprise, encourage innovation, speed urban renewal, revive flagging industries, train labor force, sponsor important research. There is always strong competition for the grants and the criteria for awards are stringent. These vary but are likely to include the location, size and industry sector of the business. Green policies. When a firm appraises a project, it may rationally only include those costs it will itself incur. However, for the good of society, external costs such as damage to wildlife need to be taken into account. This has led to green legislation, punitive taxation on damaging practices, which force companies to consider the negative impacts of potential projects. Externalities are costs or benefits which are not paid or received by the producers or consumers of the product but by other members of societies. The need for green policies arises from the existence of external environmental costs associated with some forms of production or consumption. An example of each is given below: production, river pollution from various manufacturing processes; consumption, motor vehicle emissions causing air pollution and health hazards. If external costs and benefits exist in the production or consumption process and if they are large in relation to private costs and benefits, the price system may be a poor mechanism for the allocation of resources. This is because private producers and consumers ignore and indeed may be unaware of the external effects of their activities. Thus, the price system in which prices are determined by the interaction of supply and demand, and which determines the allocation of resources, may lead to a misallocation of resources. It is likely that policies to control damage to the environment will become more and more common as concern for the environment increases. Many countries already have a differential tax on leaded and unleaded petrol, with governments taking the decision to use taxes to raise the real price of petrol each year. There is always a continuing debate in the EU over the possible introduction of a wider carbon tax. Externalities lead to a misallocation of resources and imply the need for policies to correct this. In particular, green policies are needed to tackle externalities that affect the environment. Corporate governance. Corporate governance is defined as the system by which companies are directed and controlled and covers issues such as ethics, risk management, and stakeholder protection. Regulation. Following the collapse of several large businesses and widespread concern about the standard of corporate governance across the business community, a new corporate governance framework was introduced. A variety of rules have been introduced in different countries, but the principles common to all contain regulations on separation of the supervisory function and the management function, transparency in the recruitment and remuneration of the board, appointment of non-executive director (NEDs), establishment of an audit committee and a remuneration committee, establishment of risk control procedures to maintain strategic business and operational activities. Corporate governance was also discussed in the chapter on the financial management function. Key issues in corporate governance. A further constraint on a company's activities is the system of corporate governance regulation that has been introduced to improve the standard of corporate governance in companies. The framework was introduced following a series of high-profile international business collapses. Research Enron and WorldCom if you want to know more. There was widespread belief that the traditional system with the board of directors responsible for a company and the auditors appointed by the shareholders but remunerated by the directors was insufficient to control modern companies. Governance reports, codes, and legislation vary from country to country but typically cover the following. Membership of the board to achieve a suitable balance of power. The chairperson and chief executive officer (CEO) should not be the same individual. There should be a sufficient number of non-executive director (NEDs) on the board, and most of these should be independent. NEDs on the board should prevent the board from being dominated by the executive director. The role of the NEDs is seen as critical in preventing a listed company from being run for the personal benefits of its senior executive directors. A remuneration committee to be established to decide on the remuneration of existing directors, executive directors. Service contracts for directors should not normally exceed 1 year. There have also been efforts to give shareholders greater influence over directors' remuneration. The role of the audit committee of the board. This should consist of NEDs and should work with the external auditors. The responsibility of the board of directors for monitoring all aspects of risk, not just the internal control system. For example, the Turnbull Committee was set up by the ICAEW to report on the risk management element of corporate governance. The Turnbull report produced recommendations, and a risk report is now provided by listed companies in their annual report and accounts. Audit Committee. Many global listed companies now have an audit committee or equivalent. An audit committee is a committee of the board of directors, normally 3 to 5, is made up of NEDs with no operating responsibility, has a primary function to assist the board to fulfill its stewardship responsibilities by reviewing the systems of internal control, audit process, financial information which is provided to shareholders. Note that while the topics in this chapter do not have a direct correlation to other ACCA exam, students should have an awareness of these issues when, for example, making strategic financial decisions as part of the ACCA Advanced Financial Management exam should they choose to take it. Test your understanding 1. The policies pursued by government may serve various objectives. Which of the following is not one of the principal objectives of macroeconomic policy? A. Economic growth. B. Price stability. C. Balance of payment surplus. D. Full employment. Answer TYU 1. C. Balance of payment surplus. One of the principal objectives of macroeconomic policy is to achieve a balance of payment equilibrium, not a surplus. The wealth of a country relative to others, a country's creditworthiness as a borrower, and the goodwill between countries in international relations might all depend on the achievement of an external trade balance over time. Test your understanding 2. Which of the following statement is true? Statement 1. Monetary policy seeks to regulate the economy by influencing such variables as the level of interest rates and conditions for availability of credit. Fiscal policy seeks to influence the economy by managing the amounts which the government spends and the amount it collects through taxation. A. Both are true. B. 1 true, 2 false. C. 1 false, 2 true. D. False, false. Answer A. True, true. Monetary policy aims to influence the monetary variables such as the rate of interest and the money supply in order to achieve the target set. Fiscal policy is action by the government to spend money or to collect money in taxes with the purpose of influencing the conditions of national economy. Test your understanding 3. Which of the following statement is correct? A surplus budget. A. A surplus budget occurs when total expenditure is less than total taxable income. In B. Indirect taxes include income taxes, corporation taxes, and inheritance tax. C. Direct taxes include VAT and excise duties. D. Cost push inflation might occur when excess aggregate demand enables companies to raise prices and expand profit margins. Answer TYU3 is A. A surplus budget occurs when total expenditure is less than total taxable income. Direct taxes include income tax, corporation tax, and inheritance tax. B. Indirect taxes include VAT and excise duties. Demand pull inflation might occur when excess aggregate monetary demand in the economy and hence demand for particular goods and services enables companies to raise prices and expand profit margins. Test your understanding. 4. Which of the following is not a commonly cited factor which can influence the level of exchange rates? A. Comparative inflation rate. B. Comparative interest rate. C. Speculation. D. Government borrowing. Answer D. Government borrowing. The exchange rate between two currencies is determined primarily by supply and demand in the foreign exchange market. Supply and demand in turn are subject to a number of influences such as the rate of inflation compared with the rate of inflation in the other countries, A. Interest rate compared with interest rates in other countries, and speculation. Test your understanding. 5. What is the situation called where a firm has sufficient share of the market to enable it to restrict output and raise prices? Answer C. Monopoly. A. Duopoly. B. Oligopoly. C. Monopoly. D. Totopoly. Answer is C. Monopoly. Chapter Summary: Economic Environment, Macroeconomic Policy, Objectives and Conflicts, Policies, Monetary Policy, Interest Rate, Impact on Business, Fiscal Policy, Government Borrowing, Tax, Impact on Business, Government Intervention and Regulation, Price Competition, Government Assistance, Green Policies, Corporate Governance. Chapter summary gets completed and the chapter also gets completed. Thank you so very much.